All right, fellas, back into John. We had a little bit of a interlude there over Christmas. I like that Christmas Bible study, though. Feedback was good. But we finished John 1. I think it took us 3 weeks. Now we're in John chapter 2. So if I can give you a really quick recap, I'm probably going to say it every time for a long time. John 20, verse 31, is it? No, where is it? Yeah. 20, verse 31. That's the purpose statement of the book of John. He tells you why he wrote the book. These have been written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, or the Messiah, the Son of God, and that believing you may have life in his name. So the book is apologetic in nature. He's trying to get you to believe who Christ is, and everything written should be seen through that lens. So if we do a quick recap, John chapter 1 was verbal testimony of Jesus, who he is, why he came. We had the testimony of John, the author, the apostle, then John the Baptist, and then you had Andrew, Peter, Philip, Nathaniel. And when we left off, he gathered up 5 disciples, 5 of his first disciples. He'll become 5 of the 12 later on when he calls them to be disciples of him formally. But they were in Galilee at the time. You'll remember each one of them discovers who Jesus is, tells the next one, and it's like a chain reaction of evangelism. Now, chapter 2, they move to a place called Cana. And I'll just say this, the outline for the book, if there's 21 chapters, you could say chapter 1 is verbal testimony, chapters 2 to 12 is his public ministry, doing miracles and preaching to the crowds and all that. 13 to 17 would be his private ministry, and the night before he dies to his disciples, and 18 to 21 would be his death, burial, resurrection. So we're now in the second part of the book, all the way to chapter 12, his public ministry. This is the beginning of it, and it's the first miracle. He'll do lots of miracles in the book of John, depending on how you count them up, probably 8 major miracles culminating with the resurrection at the end. But this is the first of his miracles that he ever did at a wedding. So why don't we read it, and then we'll kind of get into it. John chapter 2, verse 1. On the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. And both Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding. When the wine ran out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does that have to do with us? My hour is not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Whatever he says to you, do it." Now there were 6 stone water pots set there for the Jewish custom of purification, containing 20 or 30 gallons each. And Jesus said to them, "Fill the water pots with water." So they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, draw some out now and take it to the head waiter. So they took it to him. When the head waiter tasted the water, which had become wine, and did not know where it came from, but the servants who had drawn the water knew, the head waiter called the bridegroom and said to him, "Every man serves the good wine first, and when the people have drunk freely, then he serves the poorer wine. But you have kept the good wine until now." This beginning of his signs Jesus did in Cana of Galilee, and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him. After this, he went down to Capernaum, and that kind of goes down to the next section. But really, it's 1 to 11 is the story. That's a fascinating account. It's short. Chapter 2 is relatively short, only 25 verses. There's only 2 accounts to this one, which is the miracle of him turning water to wine, and the next one is when he will go to the temple and drive everybody out for the first time, setting off his ministry in Jerusalem. So, a lot of things that could be said. Go ahead.
On a unserious note, how good do you think his wine would have tasted? Well, you said it was good.
That's an interesting question at the outset. Very good.
How strong do you think it'd be? How good?
Okay. I'll get to that. I'll get to that when we get there, because I do want to address that. Because I was wondering the same thing. So, on the third day, verse 1, which would mean, traditionally, the third day since the last account. So you'll remember the events of 1, verse 19, all the way to verse 51 would be on 3 separate days chronologically. And then chapter 2 opens on the third day, so 3 days from then. So all this has happened from the start of John 1 to this account here is inside a week. After this, The whole Gospel of John will expand, and he'll go months in the future. But with these first 2 chapters, not even the first full 2 chapters, he will have a few days chronologically and a week total. So on the 3rd day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and they were invited. Now, Cana is tiny. You have Israel as a whole. Galilee is the northern region. Nazareth is where he was living for 30 years, where he grew up. Cana is about 9 miles north of that. If Nazareth is tiny, and you'll remember Nathanael said, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" when they hear that Jesus is from Nazareth. That has about 500 people, we think, in that town, if you could call it. Cana has probably like 50 people. This is like a village. This isn't even a city or a town. So this is a tiny, tiny place. We know Nathanael from later on in John. John tells us Nathanael is from Cana.
City.
Yes. Tiny, tiny, tiny. Barely even a village. 50 or so people. So we think. So this is on the fringes, the far north of Israel. They've walked about 9 miles, which is half a day's walk or so. There was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Both Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding. So this is interesting. If you think of a village of 50 people, and there's a wedding, this is a pretty big event for that tiny little village. And if you know anything about weddings in the ancient world, it could go up to a week. This is a huge celebration. This is not exactly like weddings are now, especially in a Jewish custom. What would have happened leading up to this point, guy meets girl, they get intertwined together, the parents know each other, the relationship is approved, and then if he wants to marry her, they enter a period of what they would call betrothal, usually about a year. If you remember from Luke 2, we were talking about Mary, the mother of Jesus. It was such a scandal that she had a baby while she was betrothed, because that could be considered adultery. So everything, you were essentially legally married, but the marriage wasn't consummated until the wedding night. So during that whole year, the groom, the man, is going to be building a house, potentially onto like an add-on to his parents' house. He's going to be getting everything ready. He's going to pay for every single thing at the wedding, which would have been considerable, especially in a day and age back then. Hard to survive, hard to make money. He's going to pay for a week-long celebration. So it's a huge event, the biggest event in the ancient world, probably a week long, and in a tiny little village like Galilee or like Cana. So everybody knows everybody. These people would have been there for generations. Jesus would have known them. They're all invited, obviously. And Nathanael is from the little tiny town of Cana. So huge event, the biggest event you could have in the ancient world, which sets the stage for Jesus' first miracle. Which I guess I'll open the question now. Why do you think he did his first ever miracle, public miracle, here? At a wedding, and not just like some giant wedding somewhere else in a big city, but this tiny little wedding in Cana. Why would he do that?
No.
Start on Friday. His mom asked him to.
That's an interesting point. We'll get to that. But I don't think his mom twists his arm. He does what he wants to do. If you think back to all the miracles Jesus does.
Well, I'm not putting him in that point. It's more like a more requested it
Yeah?
because they may not have the supplies for it.
Yeah. Think back to all the miracles Jesus does. What does he do? What kind of miracles does he do?
He walks on water. One of them, right?
Yeah, walks on water,
Heals people.
heals people, predominantly, yes.
He healed fixed the blind.
Yeah,
Or
blind,
One of them.
deaf, dumb, leprosy, paralysis. What else? He's healing people all over the place. And he's doing it out of love and care for people. He could have done any kind of miracle. He could have put a giant sign in the sky or done something like that. But almost every miracle he does is to help somebody, which is kind of amazing. So he's testifying to who he is with miracles and then helping people, showing how much he cares for them. And I think that's what's going on here. They're invited to the wedding, and then verse 3, there's the problem right there. The wine ran out. That would have been terrible because the guy spent this whole year trying to prove to his future father-in-law, I can provide for your daughter. I'm going to take your daughter here at the end of the year. The wedding's been set. Everything's been paid for. I planned it all out. And then you run out of wine, which would have been awful because that's the drink of the culture. Right. Water wasn't purified. You could die drinking some old water out of some river or something in Canaan. Everything ferments in a culture with no refrigeration. So any juice you try and make, you don't drink it immediately, it's going to ferment. You can't get it cold. You can't keep it cold. So to solve the problem of either not getting drunk with wine, which the Jews didn't want to do as a sin, and they don't want to get sick drinking just plain water out of Nazareth or wherever, they will mix the two and dilute the wine. So the grapes will ferment, they'll mix it with wine, usually anywhere from 1 to 3 parts or 1 to 10. So you'll have a very diluted, quote unquote, wine that purifies the water and keeps you from being drunk if you drink a ton of it, maybe. So it kind of is 2 birds, 1 stone. That's why they had it. So if you run out of wine in a multi-day or week-long event, that's a disaster. So the groom's in trouble. And from what I could see, there would be grounds, technically, I don't know if this ever happened, for the future wife or the family of the future wife to call off the whole thing legally because there was some major problem with the guy leading up to it, even leading up to this wedding. So that would have been terrible. This is worst case scenario for the groom. He's proven he can't plan or something's gone wrong. So big deal. Big deal. He's in trouble. And Jesus is here to save him. And then I think there's another reason that he does a miracle at a wedding. I think, at least, I'm speculating a little bit, but he's upholding the sanctity of marriage. Since the beginning, since Genesis 2, people get married. That's the general practice of life. Peter, who's actually at this wedding, it would be Andrew, Peter, Philip, Nathaniel, Jesus, John, and Jesus' mom. Peter calls marriage in his letter in the New Testament the grace of life, the grace of life, the single greatest grace you could have universally, relationally. Any culture that upholds marriage is blessed. Any culture that dishonors marriage is cursed. That's kind of just a universal fact. And I think Jesus is upholding that. He'll do that again in chapter 4. Well, you live with somebody, not your spouse. You're not married. We could go into a lot of that. But, yeah. So I heard someone say it this way, the bridge from his private ministry to his public ministry, when he steps on the scene, is one miracle, and that miracle is designed to help his family and friends. These would have been either a family wedding or a friend wedding. Everyone that he knows is there, and he helps the groom out, which I think is great. He's being gracious and loving. So, verse 3, when the wine ran out, the mother of Jesus said to him, they have no wine. It could be a lot loaded into that statement. What do you think she's trying to do, if you had to guess? She didn't ask him anything, but she does say there's no wine. What is she looking for?
Fix it. Got a wet by.
Yeah? It says he's never done a miracle. Verse 11, this beginning of his signs, another word for miracle, Jesus did in Cana in Galilee.
Show him who you are, son.
Maybe. She could have thought miracle was coming. He just started his public ministry. He'd been baptized. He starts to amass a following. Maybe. But I think I read a few people that made some good points that who else would she go to? Number one, Joseph is probably dead by now. You never see Joseph again past the one little glimpse we have of Jesus when he's 12 in Luke 2. After that, you never see Jesus again. You never see Joseph again. So he's the firstborn son. She's a widow. She's going to be leaning on him. He's making money for the family as a carpenter up to this point. And, he has all knowledge. He's got a perfect mind. He would have been the most resourceful person, the most intelligent, the most wise person ever. He never would have had a bad idea. He always would have gotten her out of a bind. Who else is she going to go to? Firstborn son, and by the way, he's perfect. He can solve every problem. He can do everything perfectly. So I don't know if she's thinking that a miracle's coming. Maybe. I think it's probably more likely that he fixes all her problems. And every time he's asked him to do something, he's done it out of love and solved the problem. So.
Mom still do that today.
Yeah. Except we're not Jesus. So, wine runs out. Jesus' mother said, they have no wine. Jesus said to her, this is an interesting response. This is kind of a jolting response. This is not what you expect. Woman, what does that have to do with us? My hour has not yet come. There's a lot loaded into that statement. So far as I can tell, the word translated woman there is not just the Greek word for woman. It's some kind of expression. We think something like ma'am, so it's not as disrespectful as that may lead it off to be. It's probably not a great translation. So he's being respectful, but this is abrupt and this isn't very intimate. He's not saying mother. There's plenty of words you could have used to say mother. He doesn't say that. What I think is going on here, and actually let me go to a cross-reference here. Let's go to Matthew 12. You can turn there or not. It doesn't matter to me. But Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, that's how the order of events is. Matthew, what did I say? 12? Yeah, Matthew 12.
What'd you get?
Pretty sure. Ain't no sugar in it. You'll be all right.
All right, Matthew 12, verse 46.
Man, I forgot about that.
Jesus is preaching to the crowds in verse 46. While he was still speaking to the crowds, behold, his mother and brothers were standing outside seeking to speak to him. This is interesting. I'll make this point here in a minute. But he's speaking to crowds publicly. All of a sudden, his mother and brothers want to see him. They're inside. So someone said to him, behold, your mother and your brothers are standing outside seeking to speak to you. But Jesus answered to the one who was telling him and said, who is my mother and who are my brothers? Interesting response. And stretching out his hands toward his disciples, he said, behold.
Let's send a picture to Mike. We just texted you.
Is that Brookshire?
Mike is.
Oh, yeah?
He sends me all kinds of random.
So he stretches out his hand, pointing basically to his disciples in the building, and said, behold, my mother and my brothers. Well, what does that mean? Verse 50. For whoever does the will of my Father who is in heaven, he is my brother and my sister and my mother. He's saying that family relations are of zero importance when it comes to the kingdom of God. Only spiritual relations. If you serve the same Father he serves, he's interested in that. If you don't, he's not. There's a couple of the cross references I had we could go to, but I think that makes the point. He is now starting at this event, distancing himself from his mother. His mother has no authority over him anymore. And now he's on a divine timetable. And this phrase, my hour has not yet come. That's a loaded phrase. He'll say that at least 8 times, I think, in the book of John. It's a way of saying my death is coming. My hour of death, resurrection, glorification is coming. If you look all throughout John, he's pointing toward the cross. From here all the way to the end, he's saying, I'm on a divine timetable now, and it's going to culminate in my death on the cross. And if you turn to John 17, I mean, flip you all over the place, but I think it's important. Here's one use of that same phrase. I think the last use, he's praying to the Father in the garden the night before he is killed. Verse 1, he spoke these things and lifted his eyes to heaven and said, Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son, that your Son may glorify you. And he goes on into a long prayer, but that's kind of the culminating use. This is the night before he dies. He said, the hour has come. It's time. Now I will die. That's what that phrase generally means. But it's an interesting response. Why say that then? She's just asking him, hey, this guy didn't have any wine. And he says, I haven't.
Hour has not come.
Yeah, it's kind of a jolting response. There's mixed opinions on what that means, but I think he's basically saying, I'm on a divine timetable, and you don't have authority over me on that timetable. I do everything my Father tells me to do. I only do what the Father shows me to do. It's what he says. He'll say that all throughout John 5. He is now on a mission to the cross. He's got 3 years to do it. He's got a lot of stuff to go through along the way. But it is interesting. He sort of gently rebukes her. And her response is godly. She shakes off the rebuke, verse 5. His mother said to the servants, whatever he says to you, do it. So she thinks he still might do something, but leaves him alone and just leaves the whole issue in Jesus' hands, as we should all do. And then it turns out this is on the divine timetable. He says, I want to do it, but you're not telling me to do this. I'm not doing this because you've told me to do it, which is an interesting thing. The only time his mother asked him to do anything in the Gospels, she's rebuked for it. This is it. This is the only time. Verse 5, mother said to the servants, whatever he says to you, do it, which indicates maybe she's part of the wedding planning. Don't know. It's a small town. Maybe she's just trying to help out and knows that her son can do something. So verse 6. Now there were 6 stone water pots set there for the Jewish custom of purification, containing 20 or 30 gallons each. So that's what, 150 to 180 gallons of water just sitting there in stone water pots. That would be, like it says, for the Jewish custom of purification. Jews would ceremonially purify everything. They'd wash the pans, they'd wash the pots, they'd wash their hands. After every meal, before and after every meal, they'd wash their hands. So you have, a ton of people there for a 5, 6, 7 day event. You're gonna need a lot of water to wash your hands after a lot of meals. That's basically what it's there for. Not for drinking, but for washing. It's just sitting there. So Jesus is going to solve the problem. It says there's 6 stone water pots, about 150 to 180 gallons of water. Verse 7, Jesus said to them, fill the water pots with water. So they filled them up to the brim, and that's an important statement. A lot of people have tried to say that somehow there was some space left and they added some wine to it. Wouldn't take much, it's diluted, 10 to 1 potentially. That explains the miracle. And that's not what happened. So John seals the deal and says they filled them up to the brim. There's no space left. So you have 6 water pots filled all the way up to the brim. Where are we? Verse 8. And he said to them, draw some out now and take it to the head waiter. So they took it to him. This would be like the maitre d', the top guy who's in charge. Maybe he works for the event location. I'm not sure who he works for, but ultimately he worked for the groom. He's the guy running this whole thing at the groom's expense, obviously. Draw some out now and take it to the head waiter. So they did it. Verse 9, when the head waiter tasted the water, which had become wine, which is very understated. This is the first giant miracle. This is Jesus' first miracle ever, and it's completely understated.
Just that quick.
That's it. So the miracle happened somewhere between verse 7 and verse 8. They filled it up, and he said, draw some and take it to him. He took it to him. Now it's wine, which is amazing, but it's understated. John doesn't underscore it really at all. Jesus doesn't make some big show about it. The whole crowd, the wedding party, they don't seem to know what's going on. Just the head waiter and some of the staff workers. And you have to think, 6 water pots filled with water, 100 and something gallons of water, disappeared. And all of a sudden in this place, there's wine. There's no soil, no vine, no leaves, no fermentation process, no crushing the grapes. Where'd the grapes come from? It just appears. Water, where'd the water go? The water's gone. And now there's wine. And you better believe it would have been the best wine you ever tasted, which is what you're asking, because maitre d' basically says so. He tasted the water, which had become wine, and did not know where it came from. But the servants who had drawn the water knew. So the head waiter called the bridegroom. So he's all of a sudden tasting wine. He said that there's no wine. Now there is wine. So he calls the bridegroom, who's responsible for all this, and said to him, every man serves the good wine first, when the people have drunk freely. Then he serves the poorer wine. You have somebody over for company, you give them the good stuff, they keep eating, you get the leftovers. It gets worse and worse as you go. It's just the way it was. But you have kept the good wine till now. So what you have here, which is very interesting, remember verbal testimony of all these people in John 1 was important. But now you have a guy who doesn't know who Jesus is, don't think, doesn't know what happened, and is completely detached and disinterested in Jesus and trying to prove his miracle. He's just there doing his job. So you have a third party who's disinterested, proclaim that this miracle happens inadvertently, giving testimony to the miracle itself. He says, you're supposed to leave the good wine for the start, and it gets worse. We ran out of wine, and now you have this amazing wine. You kept the good wine until now. And that's it. That's the account. It's a fascinating little account, but that's his first miracle. Then, just a little recap statement, verse 11. This, beginning of his signs, Jesus did in Cana of Galilee and manifested his glory. You'll remember John 1:14. Word became flesh, dwelt among us. We saw his glory, glory as of the only begotten from the Father, full of grace and truth. This is the start of that. John would have been there. The author of the book is there, which is why he knows it's the third day. He remembers the whole thing. He can write as a first-hand account. And this would have been the first time he truly saw the glory of Jesus doing a miracle. And it's solving a problem out of love, which is just amazing to me. What's the purpose of the miracle? That's a good question to ask.
To get all of us to believe whoever in the wedding.
So the wedding would be good.
Yeah, obviously there's multiple purposes. Yeah, he's saving the groom's bacon.
Yeah.
So you can continue on getting married. Providing wine for the group, so the whole wedding, everyone that was there, solving that problem. He's saving the groom's bacon. He's keeping the party going.
So some would be see that it was a miracle and know the truth about it.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're spot on because it even says so. Verse 11, he manifested his glory. And that last phrase, and his disciples believed in him. That's the purpose. His disciples believe. Who are his disciples? It doesn't say, but you can only assume the five, at least the five that were from chapter 1 that are with him there. Maybe others. Disciples isn't a technical term, just someone who follows. So it could be the five and more, or just the five. But that's the whole purpose. John 20:31, these things have been written so that you might believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and believing in his name have life in his name. That's the whole reason John writes the book. First miracle right out the gate. We have 7 or 8 more of them. And you're being called to believe. You read the book of John, he wants you to believe. Why? So you can have eternal life. That's it, guys. Cool little account. The next one that we'll go to is going to be fascinating. I haven't looked into it in a long time.